That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my dudes, let's get this going. It is time to really tune our drafts up. It's time to get ready for the fantasy football season. Now, there are 3 wide receivers here that I think that people have horribly wrong in 2021. Now, some of these guys I want to be drafting, some of them I want to be avoiding. So, of course, we'll get to that exactly in the video. But before we do, guys, please, I know that I am an idiot. Do not go to the comment section and do not just go, Mason, you're stupid. Mason, you're ugly. Mason, you don't know what you're talking about, because we all know by now that all those things may be true. But what I need from you in the comment section is instead, let me know your opinion and let me know what you think I got wrong. Let me know where we could have expanded with the discussion that we are having and what I may be missing out on. Because if you actually add to the conversation, we may be able to maybe meet in the middle. We may be able to actually get somewhere progressive. Whereas if you just let me know how stupid I am, which I'm admitting right now, yes, I am stupid, we're not going to get anywhere that way. So make sure you're going to the comment section and instead giving me your side of the story. And also, guys, make sure you go to the description of the video, the comment section, wherever you can find it, and join Underdog Fantasy with the links that we have posted there. So y'all know we are drafting every single night on Underdog Fantasy in these live streams. My favorite place to draft in 2021. And what is fantastic with the best partnership that this channel could have ever asked for is when you make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, they have decided to sponsor our 2021 fantasy football draft guide. So when you make that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you actually get our 2021 draft guide, our 2021 rankings, our 2021 tiers, our 2021 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, hundreds of pages of information, and $25 added to your account. So make sure you go through, utilize that promo code. It helps the channel a ton. And literally you are getting so much in return that it doesn't make sense for you not to do it. And let's go through and let's start it off with our first receiver in Adam Thielen. And here with Adam Thielen, I mean, this is someone that I think that is being drastically overdrafted in casual drafts. Now, y'all know something that we've been doing as of late, and I think that we have set a good baseline of understanding the difference in value in terms of an underdog draft versus a casual draft. Because on Underdog Fantasy, where we're drafting a ton and where I love to look at ADP from, I mean, the reason that I love looking at ADP from there is because everybody on Underdog Fantasy is above 18 years old, or at least 18 years old. And all those drafts are real money fantasy football drafts. They're not mock drafts with a bunch of 12-year-olds. Well, yes, I welcome you if you are a 12-year-old. I'm sorry, you're probably not as knowledgeable on fantasy football as someone that's been doing this for a very long time. So I really like looking at Underdog Fantasy and their ADP compared to ESPN. And actually on ESPN right now, Adam Thielen's being drafted as the wide receiver 16. You see him on Underdog being drafted as the wide receiver 24 because on Underdog, people understand what you're actually going to have with touchdown volatility. And this is something that we have talked about time and time and time again. We have showed this with videos in the offseason, doing this in-depth fantasy football research, trying to determine what correlates season to season and what statistics we need to be betting on to be a profitable fantasy football player. And we know while there are certain players that are always going to be outliers with their touchdown rates, there are certain players that are always going to be putting up monstrous seasons with the amount of touchdowns that they can come away with. Overall, it's a statistic that's going to be very volatile season to season. And if you see someone that's an extreme outlier, like the easiest way to identify a player that you want to be avoiding in fantasy football the following season is someone that had a ridiculous touchdown rate. And the best way to identify someone you want to be buying is someone that ran a little unlucky with touchdowns, because we know touchdowns are going to be a very small sample thing, very volatile, whereas you want to chase targets, you want to chase yards per target, you want to chase overall yards on a per game basis, because that is going to directly translate season to season. And here Adam Thielen is just a screaming sell high candidate, where we're going back and we're looking at 2019. This is a receiver. Just 2 seasons ago, he averaged less than 5 targets per game. He averaged less than 50 receiving yards per game. Adam Thielen, believe it or not, was the wide receiver 45 on a per game basis in 2019. I am not making up those numbers. Those are real numbers. And I understand he comes out, and yes, in 2020, Adam Thielen was very good for fantasy football. Adam Thielen was a top 12 receiver in fantasy football in 2020. But what we need to do is we need to go and look at the context that this was done in. We need to understand that this was done not based off volume, which we know volume is what you want to project. Volume is what you want to chase year to year. This was done purely off his touchdown rate on a per target basis. Adam Thielen was unbelievable with the amount of touchdowns that he was scoring. He almost averaged 1 touchdown per game, and he only had 7 targets per game. That is something that you never come to expect from the receiver position. And yes, I understand a lot of people are going to say, well, Mason, don't you know this is a team that they have Adam Thielen drawn up for a lot of plays in the red zone. A lot of his touchdowns came from the red zone last year. That's where they're going to be looking to go in 2021. And what I will say is, yes, I completely acknowledge the fact that with Adam Thielen, he was 100% the receiver that they were looking for when they got inside the 20-yard line last season. Now, I will also say that we have to remember the context that Minnesota Vikings offense was playing in last year. Let's remember the fact that, well, yes, Justin Jefferson had an absurd season. Justin Jefferson was by far and away the wide receiver 1 on the Minnesota Vikings. If you looked at every single thing that they were doing, I mean, Jefferson was the guy getting open. Jefferson was the guy making big plays. But why was he not involved in their red zone packages? While, of course, he was out there, he wasn't getting targeted as heavy as you actually had with Adam Thielen. And we go through and we remember the context that last season was played under. Can we all remember the fact that there was no rookie minicamp? There was a very limited training camp for those rookies, even going into the season. And to go along with this, they had no preseason whatsoever. So I think that you actually had Justin Jefferson more so succeeding due to a lack of having an exact game plan suited for his strengths. Now, of course, they were able to adjust that going through the season. But I think now that they've had Jefferson in this entire organization going into 18 months now that they really understand what they are going to be getting out of him, I mean, I would really expect that this is going to be a team that with how Justin Jefferson can win at the catch point, they're probably going to be looking to, I don't want to say make Justin Jefferson the guy they're looking to in the red zone, but at the very minimum, get him more involved. And that's going to dramatically cut into that role that Adam Thielen had last year. And also, Adam Thielen got incredibly lucky with that role if you even look at the touchdown at the rate that he was converting those clips. Now, even though Adam Thielen is going to get cut into with the red zone, I will acknowledge the fact that Kyle Rudolph is leaving this situation. Kyle Rudolph did get some touchdown volume last year. Possibly that goes to Adam Thielen. Maybe that's the one argument you can be making. But instead, I think that's literally just going to go to Irv Smith. I think that's going to go to Tyler Conklin. I'm not necessarily buying in to Adam Thielen whatsoever. Also, he's a 31-year-old wide receiver, not expecting him to get much better anytime soon. Adam Thielen, someone I cannot draft in fantasy football. Now, let's go to something that I think, I don't want to say every drafter is messing up, but a considerable amount of drafters are. And let's talk about this 3rd round decision that I think is crucial, and I think you have to hear me out on this. Allen Robinson versus Terry McLaurin. I think so many people are making an incorrect decision here. Now, we have already all season been trying to tell you to avoid Terry McLaurin in your fantasy drafts with where he was previously going. Let's remember, this is someone that back when we started I don't want to say the hate train on Terry McLaurin, but back when we started to say this is someone that was overrated in fantasy, he was actually going ahead of CeeDee Lamb. He was going ahead of Keenan Allen. He was going ahead of Allen Robinson. And since then, I mean, you have actually had Terry McLaurin fall down ADP. I'm not saying it's because we were saying anything. Of course, our channel is so small for everybody that plays fantasy football. I think it's more so just people starting to wake up to the fact that these other receivers are a lot more appealing than a Terry McLaurin in this range. And let's focus in right now on Allen Robinson, because a lot of people have gotten smart enough to realize that Keenan Allen and CeeDee Lamb are both receivers that need to be drafted over Terry McLaurin. But I don't think enough people have woken up to the fact that Allen Robinson should be as well. So let's profile Allen Robinson, and at the end of the video, I'll discuss Terry McLaurin in a little more depth and why I think we should be avoiding him in 2021. And here with Allen Robinson, let's look at this as a player that, while yes, he's a veteran, while yes, he was drafted in 2014 out of Penn State, he's still extremely young. I mean, he just turned 28 years old. And I have been all about Allen Robinson in the 3rd round. I mean, one thing that I love about Underdog Fantasy is when you get in enough drafts. Like, I'll be in about 200 leagues on Underdog Fantasy this year. Use promo code FLOCK, get our rankings, get our tiers, get everything with a $10 deposit. But they actually have a tab where you can go through and you can look at exactly how many drafts you have drafted these players in. And I've actually drafted Allen Robinson in 13.4% of my leagues so far, which that is an incredible amount considering that the baseline is going to be 8.3%. And we know when you're going to be talking about those players at the very top of fantasy drafts, it's very hard to go out there and get them on a ton of your roster. So we are very above weight on Allen Robinson. And the reason is you look at this as a veteran that is still young and has proven production with a situation that's getting better. I mean, right now, this is someone that is coming off of a wide receiver 13 finish last season. And the previous year, he was actually the wide receiver 10, and this is a per game number. So he was the wide receiver 10 in 2019. He was the wide receiver 13 in 2020. And if you look at how this was done based off of targets. It's the exact opposite situation than that what you have with an Adam Thielen, where you actually had Allen Robinson seeing 25% of the team targets in Chicago, mainly because there was nobody else to throw the ball to, but also because he's an alpha target hog, and he actually didn't even eclipse half a touchdown per game. So we know that there's more room for growth here. We know that the situation is getting better. We've had back-to-back seasons where he goes over 70 receiving yards a game with close to 10 targets a game. This is like DeAndre Hopkins level volume. Yes, he has not been DeAndre Hopkins level productive, but I wonder why. Is there a reason why Allen Robinson has been getting the same volume as a DeAndre Hopkins, but he's not as productive as him? Could it be the quarterbacks that he has been playing with? Could it be the fact that he's been playing with Mitchell Trubisky? He's been playing with Nick Foles. And what's amazing about this Allen Robinson profile at the same time is we're not just looking at him as a dominant player in Chicago. You can go back to his days in Jacksonville with Blake Bortles, guys. I mean, he was putting up a wide receiver 1 seasons in Jacksonville whenever he was like 22 years old, playing alongside Blake Bortles in just pure garbage time mode. He was going over 1,400 receiving yards. That should not happen. And it illustrates that Allen Robinson is one of the elite receivers in the NFL. I mean, he is one of the tippity top. If you're starting a franchise, if you're going on Madden and you're trying to pick out what wide receiver you want, Allen Robinson, a top 10 guy in terms of pure talent with the production that he has had in horrendous situations. And I know a lot of people are going to come out here and go, well, Mason, it's the same story with Terry McLaurin, isn't it? We'll get there in 1 second. But first, let's go through and let's actually look at the situation that Allen Robinson is going to have in 2021 compared to 2020 and see how it's getting better. Because in 2020, this was a piss poor situation. Now, I understand that, yes, Washington was very bad as well, but Chicago only had 226 passing yards per game. 226 passing yards per game is nothing for the NFL in 2021. And yes, I mean, he is not going up against really any real target competition last year, which is a main reason why he was able to thrive despite a lack of overall production from the offense. He was only going up against Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham to actually earn targets on this offense last season. But that's not changing this upcoming year. I mean, the target competition is the exact same on the roster where you have Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, and that is it. But what you do have is a massive quarterback upgrade going from the combination of Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles over to Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I mean, this has to be an improvement from Mitchell Trubisky to Andy Dalton, from Nick Foles to Justin Fields. It's an improvement 2 for 2. I mean, this is going to be a much better situation. You should expect more overall passing yards in Chicago this year with a much more efficient offense. Now, in terms of that target competition, it's the exact same. So the situation's only getting better for Allen Robinson this year. He's already put up top 10 receiver seasons in these horrendous situations. So Allen Robinson, I mean, there's not a single thing that you can look at with this profile and complain. Whereas with a Terry McLaurin, I think this is mainly narrative. I think this is a lot driven based on the fact that people got Terry McLaurin off the waiver wire 2 years ago. So of course he's always going to be a fan favorite. But if you look at the narrative between Chicago and Washington, I don't understand this whatsoever. Okay, so of course, you had Terry McLaurin with some of the worst quarterback play, if not the worst quarterback play in the NFL last year. But at the end of the day, you know how many less passing yards per game that Washington had compared to Chicago? 6. They had 6 passing yards less per game compared to Chicago last year. I mean, that's pretty much neck and neck with the passing volume that they had for their respective offenses. Now, I will admit, Terry McLaurin was a younger receiver. Terry McLaurin was 25, unlike Allen Robinson, who was 27. And I know a lot of people are going to be surprised to hear that they are that close in age. Yes, Terry McLaurin came out in 2019, but he stayed all 5 years at Ohio State compared to Allen Robinson coming out after 3 years at Penn State. So it's a night and day difference in terms of the age that they are getting to the NFL. So right now, despite Allen Robinson being in the NFL for a lot longer, they're almost the same age. And here with Terry McLaurin, I mean, this is someone that, well, yes, he was in a very bad situation. The passing volume was about the same as Allen Robinson that you had in Washington. Well, he was the wide receiver 20 on a per game basis last year. He was the wide receiver 20, and I understand the quarterback play is getting significantly better, just like what you have in Chicago. I mean, they're bringing in Ryan Fitzmagic, and I will say, of course, Ryan Fitzmagic is a significant upgrade compared to Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith. Nobody's going to argue against that. Now, what I will say is, to try to tell me that Ryan Fitzmagic is going to be significantly better than the combination of Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, I cannot get behind that whatsoever. I think a lot of people are overrating the impact that Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to have. I think a lot of people are looking at a very small sample that he had from Miami last year and assuming that's exactly who Ryan Fitzmagic is. We have to really take a step back and go, okay, what is the exact quarterback talent that we are getting coming into Washington? And Ryan Fitzmagic is going to be 39 years old this upcoming season. So at 39 years old, I'm not expecting a quarterback to get better. I'm expecting a quarterback to get worse. Nobody is going to continue to get better at this age outside of a Tom Brady. But that's besides the point. Ryan Fitzmagic is not Tom Brady. He's like 3 years older than Joe Flacco, as crazy as that sounds. So I want to take a step back. I want to look at a real sample of what we may be able to expect from Ryan Fitzmagic. And let's look at the last 5 years that you've had from Ryan Fitzmagic. So here we know that obviously this is not someone that you can rely on playing all 16 games for your NFL franchise. I mean, that has very rarely happened. I mean, over the past 5 years, he's actually started on average 8.2 games per season. So he's going to be your starter for about half the time. Now, of course, we're going to be expecting that to be a little bit more in Washington, given the fact that they don't have a competent backup quarterback. But what does that go to? Are you expecting him to play all 17 games? I would be happy if you get 12, 13 games out of Ryan Fitzmagic. And if you talk about Ryan Fitzmagic, you have to discuss the turnovers. You have to discuss that this is someone that over the past 5 years, he's averaged 13.6 touchdowns per season, and he's averaged 10.6 interceptions per season. I mean, that is an extremely high amount, and I don't necessarily think that this team is going to be willing to let Ryan Fitzmagic air it out as he has done in Tampa, as he has done in Miami in certain games. Because we see the very high turnover rate that Fitzmagic does carry with them. And this is a team with an elite defense. This is going to be a team that I think wants to run the ball. And then when Ryan Fitzmagic needs to throw it, yes, they'll unleash him. But I think more so it's going to be driven by the run. And while, yes, you have a same quarterback upgrade in Washington that you had in Chicago, you have significantly more target competition this season in Washington. They add in Curtis Samuel. They add in Diami Brown. These are going to be the best receivers that Terry McLaurin has ever played with through his entire NFL career. Logan Thomas going into year 2 at the tight end position. You should expect him not to make a Darren Waller type jump, but at least to continue to get better, as this is someone that has a very limited experience at the tight end position. So to kind of recap this, Allen Robinson has been more productive for a multitude of seasons compared to Terry McLaurin so far in their NFL careers. They are about the same age. You have Allen Robinson with a quarterback upgrade. You have Allen Robinson with no target competition being added into his offense. And on the other hand, you have Terry McLaurin with a quarterback upgrade. Don't want to say it's as big as the one that you're actually getting from Allen Robinson. And you have a ton of target competition being added into the offense. So we're going to expect that a situation that, in my opinion, is probably better for Allen Robinson than Terry McLaurin. And he's been more productive than Terry McLaurin. You're expecting Terry McLaurin to be a better fantasy pick? I don't understand that at all. Allen Robinson's my guy over Terry McLaurin 100% of drafts. I'm never taking Terry McLaurin over Allen Robinson. And the fact that some people are taking Terry McLaurin over Keenan Allen, we're not even going to go there this video. That should not even be discussed. If you take Terry McLaurin over Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, I think that we've already proven on so many different videos that that is a horrendous selection. But yeah, that's all I got for you, my dudes. Please go to the comment section. Let me know why I am stupid. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Get $25. Get our draft guide. Get our rankings. Get our tiers. Support the channel. That's all going to be found in the description of the video as well as the comment section. But yeah, that's all I got for you, my dudes. And have a great day. We have had the craziest amount of support over on Patreon. Thank you, Colby, Ryan, Spencer, Seb, It's Easy, David, Justin, Christian, Tyler, and Robert. Thank you.